Fate wasn't done with Amanda and Jerry. It didn't whisper, it didn't knock. It slammed through the front door one quiet morning in the form of Annie Margaret, elder sister to Jerry's late wife. She didn't hesitate. The heavy door burst open, and she stormed into the living room where Amanda and Jerry sat with tea in hand. She didn't greet, didn't look around. She planted herself in the center of the marble floor like a curse being spoken aloud. "You used my sister for rituals," she hissed, pointing at Jerry, voice trembling with fury. "You think you can kill her and live happily ever after with this, waitress?" Amanda straightened slowly, startled, confused. Jerry didn't flinch. "You think you can marry some poor girl, give her money, a restaurant, dress her up like royalty, and the world will forget?" Margaret's voice cracked. "Not me. I see through you." Jerry stayed seated, still, like a man who'd seen this moment in a nightmare before. Amanda glanced at him. He didn't blink. Margaret's voice rose, cutting through the morning. "I know what you are. You're in a cult. You sacrificed my sister during childbirth. You renewed your wealth with her blood. That's how you got your empire. You think you can bribe your way out of judgment?" She pointed to Amanda now. "And you think love absolves you? That you belong here? He turned you from a nobody into a millionaire. And now you want to erase what he did to my sister? No, you don't get to rewrite this story." On the wall behind her, a portrait of Jerry's late wife looked down like a silent judge. "My sister deserves justice," Margaret said, stepping forward. "And justice means prison for you, Jerry. Maybe worse. You're a murderer." From the hallway, footsteps thundered, security rushing in. The chief guard appeared, tense. "Sir," Jerry's voice was calm. "Stand down. Let her speak." The guard paused. Margaret seemed thrown off for a moment, but kept going, her eyes never leaving Jerry. Amanda stood. Her voice was quiet but sure. "Madam, please. I don't know what you were told, but it isn't true. I know my husband. He's not capable of—" "Shut your mouth," Margaret snapped. "You think because he gave you perfume and pearls, you can talk? You think you're his equal?" Amanda stood taller. "I'm not afraid of the truth. But lies won't fix your grief. That did it." Margaret's hand darted beneath her wrapper. A flash of steel. "No!" Jerry shouted, lunging. Too late. The knife glinted, then drove forward into Amanda's stomach. She gasped, blood blooming across her white blouse, then collapsed. Her knees hit the floor first, then her body. "Amanda!" Jerry caught her before she fully hit the ground. His arms cradled her, already drenched in red. Stay with me, he begged. "Look at me." Amanda's mouth trembled. "Please save me," she whispered. "I don't want to leave Juliana." Her eyes rolled back. The house alarm screamed to life. Security rushed Margaret, pinned her to the floor as she struggled. "What have I done?" she screamed. "What have I done?" Jerry didn't look at her. He was on the floor, trying to stop the bleeding with trembling hands. "Call the ambulance," he barked. "Now!" His personal medical team burst through within minutes. Amanda was lifted onto a stretcher, oxygen mask on her face. Jerry ran beside them, gripping her hand. In the ambulance, her pulse flickered under his thumb like it was deciding whether to stay. "Don't you dare," he muttered. "Don't you dare leave me." At the hospital, the stretcher flew through swinging doors. A nurse stopped Jerry. "Sir, you can't go in. She's my wife. We know. Let's do her job. Pray for her. Fight for her." The doors shut. Jerry stood outside, still wearing her blood, staring at cold steel and glass. He didn't cry. Not then. He just stood and remembered. Another hospital, another wife, another baby that didn't make it. Not again, he thought. Please, God. Not again. Hours dragged. Every clock ticked like a hammer. Police arrived. Margaret was taken into custody. Jerry didn't react. He just kept his eyes on the door. At dawn, a surgeon finally emerged. "Mr. Andrew?" Jerry jumped to his feet. "She's alive. We removed the knife, stopped the bleeding. There was internal damage, but you brought her just in time. She's stable. The next 24 hours are critical." Jerry exhaled, shoulders trembling. "Thank you." They let him see her at sunrise. Amanda lay pale under warm blankets. The beeping machines whispered life beside her. Jerry took her hand, pressed his forehead to it. Her eyes fluttered open. "Jerry," she murmured. I'm here, he said. We're here. She squeezed weakly. I'll fight. For Juliana. For us. So will I, he whispered. A week later, Amanda was discharged. Fragile but alive. She returned home to quiet applause from staff. The fountain murmured as if welcoming her back. But outside, justice was preparing its own return. Margaret's case moved fast. Attempted murder, criminal defamation, conspiracy to kill a nursing mother. The evidence was overwhelming. CCTV footage, witness statements, the knife. In court, Amanda sat beside Jerry, her hand in his, her gaze not on Margaret, but on the judge. Margaret's lawyer cried grief. The prosecution argued intent. When the verdict came, it landed like stone. Guilty, sentenced to life imprisonment without the option of parole. Gasps, flashbulbs, a quiet cough in the room. Margaret sagged. Amanda didn't flinch. Jerry didn't blink. They just held hands tighter. Outside, a reporter yelled, "Do you feel victorious?" Amanda turned. Calm, cold. This isn't victory. This is consequence. Jerry nodded. Let it remind us all. Truth doesn't bow to rumors. They left without another word. But the story wasn't done watching them. The days after the sentencing were quiet on the surface, but Amanda's heart wasn't. She moved through the house like someone trying to remember how to feel safe. The wound in her body healed stitch by stitch, but the one in her spirit refused to close. Every night, she stood on the balcony, watching the city like it might offer her answers. Sometimes, in the wind, she thought she heard footsteps that weren't there, a voice she couldn't place, a warning too soft to make out. Jerry gave her space. He cooked breakfast, helped Juliana with homework, kissed Amanda's forehead before sleep. But he didn't press. He knew grief had its own timeline. A week after the sentencing, their lawyer arrived at the house with a file. He didn't smile, didn't sit until Jerry motioned. What is it? Jerry asked. The lawyer placed the file on the table. We found something, he said. Threads we pulled during Margaret's case. They explain her sudden hate, why she came in ready to kill. Amanda sat slowly, her spine chilled. Inside the file, screenshots, bank slips, phone records, names. The lawyer tapped one page. This one stands out. A series of cash transfers to Annie Margaret. Same day, every week. Different shell accounts. And this number texted her before the attack. Whose number? Jerry asked, voice tightening. The lawyer looked up. It leads to a man who's tried to bring you down for years. Jonathan. Silence. Even the air stopped moving. Amanda stared at Jerry. Why would he? Jerry didn't answer. He stared at the file like it might burn. Then his phone buzzed. An unknown number. It flashed once, twice. Then again. He picked up. A voice slid across the line. Calm. Low. Cold. If you want the full truth, come alone. Click. Amanda was already on her feet. No. Jerry stood too. I have to. You're not going alone, she said. People who hide their names also hide knives. He took her hand. I'll be careful, but this isn't just about us anymore. If someone paid her, how many more are out there? The next morning, Jerry received a message. A location. A time. He told security to stay back, 2 streets away. Wore a plain shirt and cap. Drove himself. The address led to an old cinema in Surelier. Empty, except for a man waiting near the wall, glancing around like a trapped bird. You called me? Jerry asked. The man nodded. Musa. I worked in accounts. For Jonathan. He handed Jerry a flash drive. I can't keep this. I have a mother. I want to sleep again. Jerry took it, pocketed it. Thank you. But behind them, movement. A car door slammed. Men in black hoodies stepped out. No words. Just menace. Musa paled. They followed me. Jerry raised both hands. It's over. You're too late. Engines roared. 2 SUVs sped in from the side. Jerry's security flooded the lot, weapons drawn. Gentlemen, Jerry said quietly. Walk away. They tried, but the gate had already closed. Police appeared seconds later. No shots fired. Just cuffs and silence. Musa stood shaking. Jerry touched his shoulder. We'll protect you. Back at the mansion, Amanda watched as Jerry inserted the flash drive. The screen lit up. Bank records. Chat logs. Voice notes. Jonathan's voice. Make sure the sister believes he killed her. Grief blinds faster than lies. Pay the bloggers. If she stabs the new wife, good. Chaos makes noise. Amanda covered her mouth. Her eyes burned. He used her pain like a lever, she whispered. And he let it stab you, Jerry replied. They sent everything to the lawyer, then to the police. And then more came forward. A cleaner who overheard a phone call. A driver who was paid to tail Amanda. A journalist bribed to spin the cult rumors. A case began to form, bigger than they'd expected. Amanda, meanwhile, stayed vigilant. She watched the girls sleep, walked the restaurant at night, checking every lock twice. Why do people break others just to feel strong? She asked Jerry one night. He held her hand. Because they think power lives in cruelty. But it doesn't. It lives in truth, in kindness that doesn't bend. Weeks later, the police moved. Jonathan was arrested at his office, mid-call. Cameras clicked. His lawyers called it slander, business rivalry, a revenge plot. But the flash drive didn't lie. The court granted bail, but the case swelled around him like floodwater. Amanda and Jerry said nothing to reporters. They worked. They prayed. They held Juliana longer each morning. And then, one evening, Amanda came to Jerry and said, I want to visit Annie Margaret. He looked up from his desk. Now, not now, she said softly. But someday, I want to stop seeing her as a wound. Jerry nodded. When you're ready, I'll go with you. Seasons shifted. Amanda's scar faded. Kindness Restaurant flourished. The tables were full. The food was honest. The name still tasted like a promise. On a rainy afternoon, their lawyer brought news. 2 witnesses flipped, he said. They said Jonathan planned more than just rumors. He wanted to trigger a procurement scandal in your company. Force a board vote. Remove you. Jerry leaned back. We're not seeking revenge. Just justice. That's why it's working, the lawyer replied. Judges read intentions. They read people. That night, Amanda stood with Jerry on the balcony. Do you know what I keep hearing? She said. What? If I had died that day, what would have become of us? Jerry didn't speak. She turned to him. And you? What do you hear? He stared into the dark. If kindness hadn't stood up that day in the restaurant, what story would we be telling tonight? Amanda leaned into him. Then let's keep choosing it. We will, he said. 3 years passed like turning pages. The case crawled. Judges changed. Files grew. Public interest came and went. Then one morning, Amanda said, I'm ready. To visit her? Amanda nodded. They drove to the prison. The air was dry. A fan clicked in the visitor's hall. A guard led them to a metal table. Margaret entered slowly. Her head tie was plain. Her eyes carried years. The moment she saw them, she dropped to her knees. I'm sorry, she cried. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Amanda's eyes welled up. Please stand, Annie. We didn't come to punish you. Margaret stood, hands trembling. I was blind. Jonathan, pay my rent. Pay my children's school fees. He told me Jerry killed her. I believed him. I stopped asking questions. I let my grief become a weapon. Jerry swallowed. It almost cut our family in two. I know, she whispered. I see it every night. I see the blood. I see Amanda's face. I'm a widow with 5 kids. They suffer. I deserve this. But they don't. Amanda reached across the table and took Margaret's hands. I forgive you. Margaret froze. Jerry placed his hand over theirs. So do I. They sat like that for a long time. Amanda finally said, if you try to change, we'll try to help. Our lawyer can request a resentencing. Present the new evidence. Argue for supervision, work, and counseling. Margaret cried again. I'll change. I've already started. Every day, I pray for a second chance. Outside, the sun was high, but their hearts were light. Amanda leaned her head on Jerry's shoulder in the car. Thank you. For what? For believing mercy builds stronger houses than anger. You taught me that, he said. The review took months. Eventually, the court reopened the case. The CCTV still showed a knife. The blood was still real, but the story around it had changed. The judge's words were measured. Punishment teaches, but so does mercy when it's earned. Annie Margaret was released under strict supervision, with mandatory community service and counseling. Amanda and Jerry were waiting when she stepped outside. Margaret dropped to her knees again. Amanda lifted her gently. You're not who you were. Start again. And she did. She didn't return as a guest. She returned as a helper. At Kindness Restaurant, she wiped tables, learned the menu, memorized faces. She said, please and thank you, until it felt like breathing. One day, she found Amanda stirring jollof in the kitchen. I want to do more, not because you saved me, but because I want to be someone new. Amanda smiled. Then be new. Start with small things. They always grow. Juliana grew fast, too fast, Amanda often thought. Her daughter, once wrapped in hospital blankets beside her recovery bed, now read medical textbooks late into the night, her hair in a bun, her eyes sharp with ambition. At 17, Juliana was accepted into Lagos University Teaching Hospital to study medicine and surgery, the same hospital that had saved Amanda's life. Jerry danced in the living room like a boy. Amanda sang in the kitchen, banging pots like drums. Auntie Margaret wept and prayed like Juliana was her own. 5 years passed in quiet, sturdy joy. Juliana graduated as a doctor at 22. She returned to LUTH to begin her housemanship, the first white coat in the family, a living symbol of what survival could look like. In her first week on the job, Juliana bumped into a pharmacist, literally. He spilled pills. She spilled coffee. My name's Anderson Johns, he said, reaching for a cloth. Juliana, she replied, suddenly shy. Dr. Juliana. They laughed. They kept bumping into each other. Then they started choosing to. Lunches turned into walks. Walks turned into long silences that didn't need to be filled. They shared shifts, secrets, dreams. 3 months later, Anderson visited the mansion, nervous in his shoes, holding a small velvet box. I love your daughter, he told Jerry, voice steady. I want to marry her. I promise to honor her with all I am. Jerry studied him. Then he said, learn to honor her mother, too. Amanda is the reason Juliana believes in love. The wedding was months later. Juliana glowed in white. Anderson stood beside her, smiling like a man who understood what it meant to be trusted. Jerry and Amanda walked her down the aisle, hands locked around hers. Margaret cried in the front row, a changed woman watching a miracle unfold. When the vows were done, when Juliana and Anderson kissed, Jerry squeezed Amanda's hand. This, he whispered, is what survival looks like. That night, after the celebration faded and the last guest left, Amanda and Jerry danced alone under fairy lights in the garden. She leaned close. Do you remember the day I served you jollof? I remember the day you served me a future, he replied. 9 months later, Juliana gave birth to twin girls, Ellie and Aleliana. Names chosen to honor grace and repetition. New life. Double joy. When Jerry and Amanda each held one baby, they looked at each other and remembered it all. The restaurant, the knife, the courtroom, the forgiveness. Jerry, Amanda whispered through tears. Look at us. From nothing to this. He nodded. Kindness paid us back more than we could imagine. Margaret stood nearby, tears on her cheeks, holding Juliana's hand. Thank you for not throwing me away, she said. Thank you for letting me live to see this day. Amanda smiled. Everyone deserves a second chance. And you proved that. The twins cried loud alive. And everyone laughed. But even joy has shadows. 3 years passed. The twins were toddlers, chaotic, brilliant, beautiful. Juliana worked long shifts. Anderson helped raise them with calm hands and night stories. The mansion smelled of baby powder and lavender. Then, one calm evening came a knock. 3 careful taps. Jerry frowned. Visitors were rare, especially unannounced. He handed Ellie to Amanda, kissed both girls on their foreheads, and opened the door. A young man stood outside. Nervous. Thin suit. Crooked tie. Good evening, sir, he said quickly. My name is Peter. I used to work for Jonathan. Amanda froze. The name still burned. She placed the babies in their crib and stepped closer. Jerry's voice was calm. Go on. Peter looked down. Even though he's in prison, his network is alive. They talk. They plan. They think you forgave Margaret because you're weak. They said they'll try again. Not with lies. With force. Amanda's gasp was barely audible. Jerry's face stayed calm, but his jaw clenched. Why come here? He asked. Because, Peter said, voice breaking, I saw what kindness did to Musa. I want that chance too. Please protect me. And protect your family. They're watching you. Silence fell heavy. The grandfather clock ticked louder than usual. Jerry placed a hand on Peter's shoulder. You did the right thing. Then he turned to Amanda. But now, we must be wiser than ever. It started with 5 men. They entered Kindness Restaurant without placing an order. No greetings, no smiles. Their eyes scanned the room like it owed them something. Amanda stood behind the counter, still, calm on the outside. Every instinct in her body screamed. Good afternoon, sirs, she said, steady. May I help you? One of them gave a smirk, not a smile. We came to see the place that made so much noise. Amanda held his gaze. This place serves peace, she said, not noise. Security moved without a signal. Quiet, smooth, 2 men flanking the intruders from behind. They noticed. They left. No words. No violence. Just tension left like residue in the air. Amanda waited until the door closed. Only then did she breathe. That night, she told Jerry. He listened without blinking, hands folded, eyes hard. It will end, he said. Lies can walk far, but they never outwalk the truth. The final hearing arrived. Courtroom packed. Reporters alert. Strangers with opinions lined the walls. The city's attention returned to the man who had engineered whispers and shadows, Jonathan. Amanda sat between Jerry and Juliana. Margaret sat behind them. Her fingers knotted in her lap. The prosecutor rose. Your Honor, he began, this is not a business dispute. This is a story of power abused, of grief used as bait. Mr. Jonathan used money, influence, and deceit to attempt the destruction of a man's life and a family's peace. Exhibits were laid out like bricks. The flash drive, voice notes, chat logs, transaction trails, testimonies from Musa, Peter, and 2 former employees who cracked under guilt. The courtroom listened as Jonathan's own voice played overhead. Make sure the sister believes he killed her. Pain blinds faster than lies. Pay the bloggers. If the girl acts reckless, good. Chaos is the cover. His defense tried to claim fabrication. A business rivalry spun out of proportion. But the evidence didn't blink. It just sat there, heavier than air. Jerry didn't speak during the trial. He didn't need to. Amanda did once. Called as a witness, she stood in silence before answering the first question. Mrs. Andrew, do you believe Mr. Jonathan's actions nearly cost you your life? Yes, she said. But more than that, they almost cost me my soul. What do you mean? He made people believe I was a reward for blood. He made a grieving woman pick up a knife. And if not for mercy, my children would be motherless. There was silence when she returned to her seat. The judge took 3 days to write the final decision. When he returned, his voice was firm. Jonathan Madu, you orchestrated deception. You turned sorrow into strategy. You created weapons from words and knives from grief. For this, the court finds you guilty on all charges: criminal conspiracy, defamation, incitement, and attempted homicide by proxy. You are hereby sentenced to 30 years in prison, without the possibility of early release. There was no outburst, no cries, only the sound of one man's world collapsing. Amanda whispered, "It is over." Jerry shook his head. "No, it is finished, but not over. Kindness will always have enemies." Margaret didn't speak in the car. She just held Amanda's hand. In the weeks that followed, Kindness Restaurant thrived. Not from sympathy, but from honesty. People came for the food, but stayed for the peace. Margaret worked every shift she could. She cleaned, managed schedules, even covered when staff were sick. "I have to earn it," she told Amanda. "You already have," Amanda replied. "No," Margaret said. "I want to be more than forgiven. I want to be useful." Amanda smiled. "Then let's build something useful." They started a foundation, quiet but real. It offered counseling for women with violent trauma, skilled training for victims of false accusations, and jobs for former inmates who proved they were ready to start again. Margaret helped manage it. "I can't undo what I did," she said, "but I can make sure someone else doesn't do the same." One evening, Amanda came downstairs and found Margaret alone in the restaurant, wiping each table with care. "Auntie," We have cleaners, Amanda said. I know, Margaret said, not stopping. But every plate I clean, it wipes a part of me too. Amanda stepped beside her. Then keep wiping. But don't forget, you are loved here. You are not a shadow. Margaret wept quietly, not from guilt, from grace. At home, the twins were growing fast. Ellie loved to climb. Aleliana loved to sing. Amanda and Jerry split duties like clockwork. Morning baths, bedtime stories, diaper patrol. Juliana worked long shifts, but every evening she came home to laughter and love. Anderson had become a fixture, steady, kind, thoughtful. He didn't talk much in public, but in the kitchen, he was always telling jokes that made Amanda laugh harder than she expected. Do you know, he said once, while slicing carrots, that kindness is a full-time job? Tell me about it, Amanda said, grinning. I married the CEO. Jerry raised an eyebrow from the hallway. I'll accept that promotion. Then came a quiet evening. Too quiet. Amanda was rocking Liliana in her arms. Jerry held Ellie on his chest, humming. The house smelled of baby powder and hibiscus. Then, 3 soft knocks at the door. Jerry rose, handed Ellie gently to Amanda. He opened the door. A young man in a worn suit, nervous, eyes darting. Good evening, sir. My name is Peter. I used to work for Mr. Jonathan. Amanda's heart froze. She stepped closer. Even though he's in prison, Peter said, his network is alive. They believe your kindness makes you weak. They're planning to try again, not with lies, with force. Jerry's face didn't change, but his body stilled. Why come here, he asked. Peter looked down. Because I saw what kindness did to Musa. I want that chance too. Please protect me, and protect your family. They're watching. Jerry stepped forward, placed a hand on Peter's shoulder. You're safe now. Then turned to Amanda. But we must be wiser than ever. The years moved quickly, like pages in a wind-blown book. Kindness Restaurant aged with grace. From a hidden spot in Lagos, it had become a landmark, known not just for its food, but for its story. Amanda no longer worked the floor, but she walked the kitchen each morning, checking the pots, greeting staff by name. Juliana had grown fully into her role. Now a senior resident at LUTH, she mentored young interns the same way life had once mentored her, through fire. Anderson remained her anchor, calm in his white pharmacist coat, with a smile that still made Amanda shake her head in gratitude. The twins, Ellie and Aleliana, were now 10. Mischievous, brilliant, full of questions that made philosophers look lazy. They climbed trees, argued like diplomats, and had already memorized their mother's wedding vows. Annie Margaret still worked at the restaurant, not out of obligation, but purpose. She oversaw training, managed donations from the foundation, and sometimes stood in the kitchen just to watch people eat. It keeps me human, she'd say, and it keeps me humble. The 25th anniversary of Kindness Restaurant came on a humid Saturday. Invitations had gone out quietly. No TV ads, no newspaper blasts. Just word of mouth, respect, and a reputation that needed no amplifier. The hall was packed. Jerry stood at the back for a moment, taking it all in. Amanda beside him, holding his hand. Juliana stood near the podium, flanked by her daughters and husband. Anderson adjusted Ellie's headband. Aleliana tried to pull her sister's braid. Laughter rippled through the rows. Then Amanda stepped forward. She took the microphone slowly, carefully, as if it weighed more than it looked. 25 years ago, she began, I was a waitress. I wore a tired apron and carried hope in small doses. The hall quieted. I didn't think kindness could feed a future. I thought it was soft. I thought it was for people who didn't know how to survive. She paused. But I was wrong. Kindness is the sharpest weapon I've ever held. It rebuilt a man. It healed a wound. It saved a life. Applause. Amanda looked at Margaret. It also gave someone a second chance. And that someone became part of this story, not as a footnote, but as proof that people change. Margaret wiped her cheek. Amanda continued. This restaurant began with pain. It grew through storms. But it survived, and today it stands. Not because we had the best recipe, but because we believed in what one meal could do. She held up her hand. To those who've eaten here, worked here, cried here, thank you. To those who doubted us, thank you too. You taught us to keep building. She smiled. And to my husband, Jerry, thank you for turning a poor waitress into a queen. The crowd stood, applauding, clapping, some crying. Then Jerry stepped up, took the microphone, calm and steady. I stand as proof, he said, that the poorest man is not the one without money. It is the one without kindness. Silence. Then more applause. Afterward, as the family stood on stage for photos, Ellie whispered, "Mama, can I open a restaurant one day?" Amanda knelt beside her. "Of course, but I want to call it Mercy, because kindness already has a name." Amanda laughed. "Then Mercy it is." Later that evening, as the crowd faded and the lights dimmed, Amanda and Jerry sat alone on the restaurant's patio. "You remember the day I spilled rice in your lap?" Amanda said, smiling. "I remember the day you served me faith with a side of jollof," Jerry replied. They sat quietly, holding hands. Then, just as the sun vanished completely behind the buildings, a car pulled up. A woman stepped out, older, graceful, unfamiliar. She held an envelope. "I'm sorry to come unannounced," she said softly. Jerry stood. Amanda narrowed her eyes, but didn't move. "I work with a foundation that handles abandoned estates," the woman explained. "We recently came across a sealed box. It was labeled for Juliana, if the truth is ever safe. It belonged to someone named Mabel, your late wife." Amanda inhaled sharply. Jerry froze. The envelope was passed to him. Inside, a letter. A photograph. A pendant. Jerry read silently, eyes locked. The letter was short. "I knew the danger you were in," it said. "If I did not make it, tell Juliana this. Her father was never the villain. I chose love over fear. I chose to marry you despite what they warned. Because I believed in you. And I was not wrong." Tears welled in Jerry's eyes. He passed the photo to Amanda. It was Mabel, pregnant, smiling. And a young Jerry, arms around her. Their eyes held joy, but behind it, a quiet fear. "She knew," Amanda whispered. Jerry nodded. She knew everything. They stood in silence. Then Amanda reached out and took his hand. "Truth always survives," she said. And as the night deepened and the stars blinked into being, the past and the future sat together on a wooden bench. Not enemies, not strangers, just chapters in the same book. Full circle,